and welcome to the Noona's Noonchi live deep dive, being introspective with K-dramas, or right now, Extraordinary Attorney Woo, from a mental health perspective. So we have completed EAW. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have heard from a lot of you, and it seems like actually almost all of you really enjoyed it. I'm trying to think of the statistics real quick. Everyone seemed to enjoy the finale of Extra Attorney Woo. I am no exception. I really loved it. I think I was distracted actually, when was it? Thursday night here on the East Coast, trying to pack for my trip because I went to DC this weekend, and I got really distracted trying to pack and then being like, what just happened? It was a wonderfully feel-good ending. So I'm just going to tell you my one opinion first before I give you some mental health takeaways, because of course I want you to learn something. I felt really good about the ending in the sense of the pace. Sometimes K-dramas end like rushed, you know? The pacing of this drama was actually very good. Perhaps because we had different legal cases each episode, or at least every 2 episodes, there was a new legal case. What I really liked about this drama, actually, to be honest with you, is they did set it up well for a possible season 2. Don't you think? No cliffhanger, per se. Nobody really, I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want a cliffhanger at the end of season 1. If we're going to get a season 2, you want to end it nice, knowing there is a possibility because the story didn't end. The story actually was almost just beginning because Young-woo was coming into her own as a lawyer, as a 변호사, right? And became a full-time lawyer. By the way, if you're watching this, there's going to be spoilers because I'm talking about the ending. So she becomes a full-time lawyer at the end. And what a great way to end that with her career, in the sense of she has achieved that goal as a career. And then on the side of love, yes, she reconciled with Juno. And it was a beautiful conversation about the love of a cat, which I totally relate to. Whoever has cats, you kind of get it, right? But they're cuddly and they'll give you love when you need it. In fact, I want to tell you a little side note, and I mentioned it before. Cats are actually the top therapeutic animal. People think it's dogs. Dogs return the love equally, and if not more so. They will adore the owner. But cats are easy to take care of. They're low maintenance. Do you know what I mean? They don't need a lot from you, and they'll leave you alone when you need to be left alone. So in some sense, cats are much more therapeutic. I got a lot of questions, or actually more like discussion topics that you guys wanted me to address for this final episode, or 15 and 16. So I'm going to do that. But I wanted to give you my opinion. I would say 11 out of 10 on rating this ending. So well done. And again, it sets you up for season 2. And it wasn't rushed. And I love that till the very end, they did a legal case. And I thought that was important. That was really like true to the drama, right? And not just doing some other storyline. They stayed very consistent. Let's go to the title. The title in Korean of the K-drama, which I mentioned before, it was controversial. The exact translation is strange, right? 이상한 변호사 우영우. Now, when you hear strange or odd or weird, it does not have the best tone or connotation when you're talking about somebody with autism, right? Oh, I love that this person said she didn't even notice, or he or she didn't notice the ending. You just loved it. Yeah. Basically, we all loved it because of the way it made us feel. Let's really address that too. But I want to bring up the title. You know, it's called 이상한, and there was some controversy over that, but in the English translation, extraordinary is the translation. Young-woo, in episode 16, I felt like she came full circle. Do you remember that line? And I didn't have time to find it right before I got on this live, that she said something like, I know that I'm like strange, or I'm unusual. And then a peculiar might have been the word, 이상한, right? Actually, it was peculiar, because what I really liked about peculiar, I like that word better. It doesn't necessarily mean, it does mean strange, odd, but peculiar can also mean, interesting, you stand out. Why am I bringing that up? Only because it seems to address the title. She herself says, I know that I come across 이상한, peculiar, unusual. Maybe in some sense people might say strange, but she's sharing that. However, what she says next is so beautiful, right? She goes, but I value myself, my life, I'm living a beautiful life. is what she said. And I do remember that because I remember the Korean translation of that. So I think that was one of my favorite lines because it explained the title a little bit to me. I got a lot of questions about the title, so I wanted to bring that up. And I thought that was perfect, to be honest with you. The other thing I want to talk about is transformations. A lot of you guys talked about transformations, so I'm assuming you mean the characters. What I did like, let's be realistic. There's always going to be some sort of, not always a bad guy in the K-dramas, but an antagonist or somebody that stands out that seems to be the thorn in somebody's side. Minu was the thorn in Youngwoo's side, and we saw that transformation in episode 15 pretty much. But we also saw a transformation in, why do I always forget his name, in the their boss attorney. Just drawing a blank with his name, right? I know his real name, Kang Ji-hyung. And his transformation of just what his priorities are, or realizing, hey, but also feeling like he got the validation from his hubes, right? The people that work for him, Youngwoo and Minu and Youngwoo's good colleague friend, but also not knowing the name. Feel free to share that with me because I forget the name. And I think he just got a lot of that affirmation of what he was doing. His work meant a lot. So I think that was important. The transformation was more like realizing maybe his work is done. However, obviously we got some like, you know, little bit of a hint with the wink that he was going to come back. That was my interpretation, going, hey, and by the way, you know, winking to somebody with autism, they won't get that. So I thought that was really funny that she didn't get it. You know, she was like, I don't know what you're doing. So I'm bringing up his transformation as well. And then the transformation of just Youngwoo overall. And so Minu is not the only transformation, by the way. Also, I want to point out his transformation, which I think is really important to come out. How did that come about? How did he transform with the influencing of his female coworker that they kind of like each other kind of thing, right? But not just that. It's not just him liking her. I really saw beyond that, and I hope you guys did too. I really believed he was influenced by how firmly she believed in her values and principles and was like, this is not right. I think that's great. Don't you love that? This isn't right. So of course I'm going to speak up. And he kind of silenced her. And at first we thought, oh, he's silencing her because he's like, you know, let's just kind of follow the lead of the other attorney that we didn't really like. But in the end, he speaks up as well. But again, I believe he spoke up for himself based on the influence of his female coworker, because he was like, she really believes in this. Let me look at that. You know what? So do I. Why am I pointing that out? Really important. What are your core values? I talk about this all the time. But with your mental health, when you stand firm in what you believe and you're like, you know what? I know that people are saying this way, but this is what I believe. It may hurt you when people are like, oh my gosh, you're the only one that believes that, or you're the only one doing that, or why are you doing this? But in the end, trust me, you'll feel better about yourself, and you'll get that internal strength, which you need more than anything to keep going and follow through with your core values, which in the end will make the difference. Not somebody else's, but yours. What is this? Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that other attorney, really. But what I really liked, even though he was annoying, there are examples, there's people like that in the workplace. Very realistic portrayal of different people in the workplace, right? Not just lawyers, just people that you work with. People that may be your superior that you know you can't trust or rely on, let's be real. Or your coworkers that you don't get along with in the beginning but end up becoming your best friends. I see that a lot too. So all of that, all those relationship nuances within the workplace are very real. So I like that. Someone also mentioned, let me read this. Her comment about character really seemed to make him reflect on his own behavior. Yeah, you're right. Actually, thanks for the reminder. I mean, of course she made that comment as well. Yes. And then not only that, not just being told, hey, this is what I want in a guy, or why don't you act like this, or this is what I like. I think he really, I want to be honest, saw the example of that. You can't just say something and be like, well, this is what I believe, and say it all the time and not do it. I know lots of examples where you could just say things. You talk about it publicly and you don't do it. In the end, that does not make you credible. And so people won't believe you, if that makes sense. And they won't trust you. So that's very important with trust. Oh, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. It is. Sometimes your own family will not necessarily agree with what you're doing or what you believe. I've also experienced that. However, I want to say The confidence is needed that you do believe in what you're doing or what you're saying or what you're going to do or what you've done, because that confidence will I guess, be exposed to your family, and you got to show that confidence for them to believe it. If you start wavering a little bit going, yeah, I think this is what I believe, they're not going to believe you, right? You got to be like, this is why I'm doing this. You don't agree, but this is why. And then you keep convincing with that confidence. And that's what we saw a lot in the drama. I want to say this great question here. I pulled it up. Someone, it was only one question, but I really liked it, about the counselor in Boston. Do you remember the CEO of Hanbada, or no, sorry, was it her mom, the Tesson CEO, that was going to send her to Boston? Yes, the Boston office. And they mentioned there's also going to be a counselor. Someone asked a very interesting question about what's the point of the counselor? Is that really important? I wanted to bring it up, actually, that I thought it was interesting that they, talked about the Boston office, US, and that a counselor, there'd be much more, I think they hinted at resources. I didn't take it too deeply, as in that was something she missed all her life. She talked about perhaps it would be nice to have that professional help, but clearly we're meant to see that she did a lot on her own, or was resilient with the support of her father. And of course, she's on the high functioning end, so she doesn't need as much support. But the counselor, and anybody can always use, not just someone who has autism, right? Any of us can use the counselor. So I think that was pointing out I was just assuming US culture of it being less of a stigma. In other countries, mental health or seeking counseling or therapy is more stigmatic. US, there's still stigma, but less so. And perhaps that was part of the culture in saying, hey, she can openly get counseling. And I interpret it that way, maybe more of an environment that's friendly and helpful. And that's how I interpreted that. So hopefully that helps you, but I really liked that reference. Again, it's important to know how different countries seek therapy, or even, do they even offer that? Or do you feel like you have to hide it? And they flat out pointed it out in this K-drama, though they pointed it out in the US, so I thought that was interesting. But I hope it becomes more talked about. Counseling, therapy, very important. Okay, I absolutely loved the whale, the symbolism of the whale, and I'll have to talk about that on another reel because it's too much to talk about. But I love the beginning. Do you remember the beginning? First of all, you see whales in the beginning. I love the intro, but then you see in the very beginning her going into her first day at Hanbada, the firm, and the whale. And she's, what I love is what you see is her meditating. She's scared or a little bit uneasy being on the subway. She has on her headphones, and you see her close her eyes, and then she imagines the whale, sperm whale, or I think those were her favorites, going across the back of the subway, and the whale is going alongside the subway. Symbolism of just, first of all, her own inner strength. That's what I believe. That's my interpretation. And just, a whale is huge, right? And it's really imaginative. You could see it on the screen. And I just imagine she delved deep because she was feeling nervous and even anxious, and meditated or was practicing mindfulness by closing her eyes, and then she opened it and visualized a whale. That, I'm going to talk about that at the very end because that's my takeaway for you guys. But what I loved at the end, episode 16, I even paused it. I actually didn't post it on stories. I think I forgot. I loved that. What did you see at the end? Should I pause? Don't you love the whale emojis? Thanks for sharing that. Yes. Okay. Oh, thanks. Okay. So I'm a little bit late on the comment. I love Adosa Fran, who I know personally. Hi. Says it's interesting that it was recommended because this person says I don't see how it could be benefit for her, as she'd have to learn a new language, which is super hard, especially with learning difficulties. Well, thanks for sharing that. You're right. We're assuming that we didn't hear any English or anything like that. And then the counseling, that's a good point, actually, for pointing that out. So thank you. I appreciate that. And that was, again, this person, Adosa Fran, is talking about the earlier comment I made about the Boston reference to counseling and that. And like I said, I thought it was more of a cultural context reference of the US versus Korea and talking about mental health and counseling. But that is a very good point about whether or not it would benefit her. And sometimes when therapy doesn't benefit, FYI, it can be stressful. It is therapy and it's meant to help, but there are times it may not work, or the right therapist may not work for you. That's very important for you guys to know. And then going back to the whale reference. Do you remember? I'm asking the question. Did anybody want to answer this? The whale reference in the beginning when she was, nervous on the subway, and she was like closing her eyes with her headphones, and then she envisions the whale kind of following her to work. The last episode, same thing, a little nervousness, right? It's like coming full circle. This is what I love about K-dramas, doing that imagery, just that metaphor. And then she's on the subway. She got nervous, calms down. Did you see her hands? She was a little tense. Then she calmed down, really showed a good practice of mindfulness. And then she closed her eyes. And what did she envision? The whale, the big whale, and then the other whales. And I really love that. It showed the smaller whales, other whales, and then showed like a killer whale, and that I recognized. A killer whale above that. I just think, what do you think that symbolized? Pause. That symbolized to me just how she's come with the way she's come full circle. First of all, with the whales representing her own inner strength, but she's not alone. And I really believe she wasn't alone in the beginning. But at the end, what does she have? She loves her workplace, which she shares in a scene prior at the dinner table. I love working there. Even if you weren't working there, Sambinim, or like my boss attorney, even if you weren't working there, I'd still love it. So I think she felt like she had not just comfort from her team. She felt like she had achieved her own. She fell into her own. I wanted to point that out. It's not that she leaned on her coworkers. They were supportive and it was great to have that environment, but she likes working there regardless of technically the boss looking out for her. Does that make sense? That was so important. But then the whale at the end just showed all the other people. I think they represented other people. What do you guys think? Right? A social circle, her team, where she, maybe even the cases that she won and felt like she achieved some of that community as well. Because that's important. I'm sure sometimes people keep in touch with their clients. Yes, a new support group besides her dad. Dosa Franchang, I think symbolizes to me the fact that yes, she's super awesome and smart and skilled, but she is still and also autistic. I do feel sometimes it's forgotten about her. Her autism makes her her. That's right. And I was about to say, and I'm sure, more folks who actually are experienced or have autism are more keen on that. I do think at the very end, thank goodness, they stay true with that, meaning she showed those characteristics to the very end, a little bit more dramatized in the sense of how they wanted to end it for it to be a happy ending. But overall, she did all those nuances, her quirks, the peculiar things that made her her. And that was important to see. And we saw that at the very end, even when everybody's enjoying the food and she ate her kimbap. I just love that. But hopefully you understand my reference to the whale, the imagery of perhaps. And my whole thing is, I think it's really important, whether you struggle with a mental illness or not, or mental health condition or not. Again, I bring this up each time. Please, if you feel isolated or lonely, that is the first thing I need you to address. So I need you to find somebody. For a Youngo, it could have just been her dad, and I believe she still would have been content. But again, showing those whales and the group of whales traveling together, which is, by the way, whales do travel together. Like a school of fish, whales travel together. That's important, looking out for each other. So now Youngu has other whales looking out for her. The other thing is, two last things. The dinner table. Everybody loved that. I want to share bringing that up. I think that was the most popular scene after a while, where everyone just loved seeing the group of everybody, every character in the show at the dinner table. Hence my point to you. You love seeing group of friendship, camaraderie, love, romance, all of that together. Don't you love seeing that? Well, I'm pointing that out to you. How can you mimic a dinner table like that? Nobody was there that was technically her family, so it doesn't necessarily have to be family. A family could be defined differently. And so that's important to look at. So I wanted to point out that dinner table and how every one of you guys loved that scene. And then finally, so the very last scene, gotta love the very last scene, right? When she talks about the Netflix translation, English translation was a sense of fulfillment. So when I saw that, I did not recognize the word, just so you know. My Korean vocabulary is maybe like 8th grade level, 9th grade level at best, because I went to Korean school, but I don't practice it. So when I heard her say 부듯함, I had to pause it. And I have the best translator next to me, my husband. I'm like, what? What did she say? I was like, I never heard that word. Does that mean sense of fulfillment? He goes, that's not a bad translation. But guess what he said? He goes, but I think it means, from what I know, it's feeling good, like feeling proud of yourself. So I wanted to bring that up too, that angle of it. This is why sometimes you got to just listen to the Korean if you can understand that, and then look up the word if you don't know it, and not just look at the subtitles, because translations could be just slightly, not inaccurate per se, I don't want to say that, but off. But I love that my husband was like, well, I think from the way I know about it growing up and the word that's used, it's about I'm feeling good and I'm feeling proud of myself. So sense of fulfillment is not inaccurate, but I also wanted to give you those other ones, because of feeling good and feeling proud, well, she just literally hopped through the revolving doors, and I don't think we saw her do it until then. And then she became a full-time attorney. So that I think that's important to point out. A sense of fulfillment is that overarching thing. I like the feeling good and feeling proud, a personal, like deep in the heart thing. And I really believe she felt that. And I really believe you can feel that. And I made sure that this is clear with some folks that I work with about autism. You can feel such strong emotions. Even I'm not an expert. Okay, but you can feel that, especially on the high functioning end. It's sometimes difficult to share that. But so I liked how it took her some time, a couple scenes in, to go, what do I want to tell you, Dad? I don't know. Appa, it's something I'm feeling. And he was trying to describe it. And then she shared, pudutam. That is such a good word. And again, also think of it as feeling great and proud. I hope that helps. I'm going to go through some of these comments, pausing there. Oh, well, I mean, you know what? And I'm going to point that out. Sure. So someone talked about, they thought that comment of counseling was somewhat of a diss. Again, everyone can interpret anything differently. I didn't take that. I actually took it more as perhaps pointing out that, hey, Dad, you know, you didn't necessarily give her this support when she needed it. And in some sense, because I'm a therapist, I didn't really see much into it. But now that you're pointing that out, to be honest with you, that is another angle to look at. Maybe thinking you need therapy because you have autism or you have something. Sure. Or also pointing out that the dad could have done a better job. That could be a diss as well. So that is a good interpretation. I'm going to give that definitely a credit to that. Let's see if I'm missing something else. Yeah. Love it. What if you don't have anybody? I really believe that's when I say you find somebody. And even if it's getting to know somebody new, and that is fine. Sometimes new friends are great friends, you know, and it might be a time in your life when you need that. The whale group, the whales are a great sign of, first of all, any symbolism, like the whale or other animals like the cat, not just in that K-drama. I'm thinking of Because This Is My First Life. And then dogs, you know, all that stuff. You kind of remember those symbolism and what they symbolize, right? I think the whales are great. Of course, whales are beautiful creatures, right? So you think that already, and already you have this sense of peace, right? And awe, because they're majestic creatures. And Youngwoo, I think for her, that's where she got her inspiration. I mean, I was like, I don't have a fan hair, but you know, her hair would blow and she'd get all inspired when she thought of something, and then we'd see her picturing, or the whale would be in the background. So that's all that symbolism. It's very inspirational and aspirational. Guys, whales. Yeah, you can, don't worry, I'll post this, right? Accomplishment, feeling proud. I'm looking at this. Yeah, feeling like you stand on your own 2 feet. Pointing back to Youngwoo's sharing that she loves working at that firm, regardless of the lawyer. And of course, nobody else was really involved in that. But I think it was her way of saying, no, I believe I found my place. It doesn't, and she lost cases. She won some cases. Maybe, I don't know if you could think about it. Was it 50-50? Maybe she won more than she lost. Either way, it's realistic. It's not like she won all of them. She found her own, she found her peace, and that's just meant to be as the K-drama, right? The story arc. You want a happy ending. And I'm glad we got it. What else is someone saying? Of course I'm going to say this live. I'm reading because I have one more thing I want to say before I close. Great. Church small groups are awesome. And you know, more than ever, I'm going to say the biggest thing of people talking to me or struggling is loneliness. I think I shared that before. And you can feel lonely amongst 50 people, 50 friends, right? And I think that's really important. So you don't need a lot of people around you or this huge group of friends. You need quality community. I love that someone brought up her younger brother. my interpretation was, I mean, without reading too deep into it, and maybe no more for the future season 2, that just to show that he was a brother, you know, the similarities of him eating the kimbap showed that definitely he's a genius in the sense of like he hacked into this huge conglomerate corporation, and you know, you saw that. So there's some of that implication, but I don't know about jumping too soon with the autism spectrum, though I do know only one example of a family that has siblings that both have autism. So, but that's fairly uncommon. So I took it more as artistic, but again, we could see season 2 and it's not totally unrealistic. But I did like that. I think I cracked up when I saw that he also ate kimbap that way. And again, it shows that bond, right? And people need to see that there's some sort of family bond that they had, aside from just having the same mom. Okay, good. Now, I'm going to go to my final point. Yes, you're watching because this is my first live. The other question I got a lot was about what to watch next. Okay, so if you're having a hard time getting over K-drama, this is what I do. I do usually have a hard time getting over K-drama, but then there's so much good content out there that I end up finding something else to watch. But I do, not just because I'm doing deep dives, but I do rewatch some of the episodes in the K-drama I just finished. It just helps. You're like, oh, okay, look at that line that Youngwoo said. Let me go back to episode 7 or 8, whatever it was, and watch that again because that was really good. That helps. You could do that. And sometimes what I do is I'm still kind of rewatching some things while I start a new one. And I told you guys to prep. I saw if you could wish upon me and today's webtoon. I started that. And I would say if you could wish upon me, if you wish upon me is a little different. Today's webtoon is much, I would say, has that same light tone of Attorney Woo. So if you want something like that, highly recommend that. And I'm enjoying that so far. So that's something to think about if you're trying to struggle with getting over something. Again, no rush to start a new K-drama. Please don't. Like I said, I rewatch things all the time and I go back to them all the time and take a break. Definitely take a break. I don't think I take a break more than a few days though, because that's my self-care and I need to watch something. This weekend, I was so busy, I didn't watch anything. So I can't wait to catch up. That said, here is my takeaway. Okay, the takeaway from episode, the finale, or overall Youngwoo. I just was trying to think, what would I tell you if you came into a therapy session with me and we're talking about Attorney Woo and the K-drama, what would I tell you to work on? And this is what came to mind. I would say let's go back to the whale symbolism because I really think that's important. It was the common thread in each episode. And it was where she found her source of, oh my gosh, here's my inspiration. And then the whale coming about. So for me, I'm going to ask you this. When you're anxious like Youngwoo was on the subway and she's closing her eyes to meditate or to practice mindfulness, that is a very good technique. Any coping method, out of all coping methods, if you can grasp mindfulness, really easy. It's not as abstract as people think. It's as simple as closing your eyes and envisioning a whale. But that's her animal. What's yours? So the takeaway is, what is your symbol of strength? Resiliency, hope, fun, something that makes you happy. What do you envision? Maybe it's a person, and that person can symbolize something for you too. Maybe it's a place. Maybe it's an animal or a thing. Whatever that is, I want you to picture that. Even as I'm talking to you, you can close your eyes and you can be like, yes, I do envision this a lot. This is what helps me. And then just use Youngwoo's example of that whale. And when you're inspired, I hope you can picture that to keep going. That's your beacon of strength, right? For an example, I know some people who say their beacon of strength is a lighthouse because they see it far away and it kind of gives them that hope and the light when things are dark. Someone shared that with me. And I was like, wow, that's super good. So I wanted to share that with you. Again, what is your symbol of strength? Like Youngwoo's strength or symbol was the whale or whales. Also dolphins, she talked about that. They're amongst the same family, but the whale. And that's super important for you to think about. People, someone shared about when they are anxious, they count backwards. I started 20. Oh, great. Yes. Counting is great. When you're breathing, sometimes it helps to count. There's many methods out there, and this is part of it. Visualization. When you're visualizing, I will share, and I think I did a reel on it, my favorite meditative spots in Korea. I do go back to there sometimes. I was like, I was on vacation and I'm envisioning that place where I was in Pohang and that was so lovely. Let me go back to there. Just a moment of relief from stress or what you're experiencing to distract you. And then it helps you get through it until you do that again and practice it again. So that said, that's my main takeaway from this whole K-drama. There's so many, but that's mine. A simple thing you can practice. And if it's the whale, great. I mean, the whale is beautiful. If that becomes a symbol of strength for you, I think that's awesome. But pick it, think about it. Maybe it's a couple things, but don't think too much about various things. I want you to pick one that really represents strength, hope, like that love, excitement, and happiness for you to get you through your day. So that said, I am concluding EAW. My live on that. This is most likely my last live unless we hear something about a season 2, and I don't want it to happen anytime soon because Kang Tae-ho is going to Kunde, so we're not going to be able to see him for 2 years. So let's wait on that and hope. Well, good. You sleep. Sleep is very important, as I've said before. Keep in touch, guys, and look out for some new content, I would say, on the K-dramas I'm watching right now. Both of them happen to be on Viki. If You Wish Upon Me and Today's Webtoon. That's what I started. I cannot wait for the new Netflix one, just so you know, with Kim Go-eun, and that's in a couple weeks, I believe. All right, stay tuned, guys. Keep in touch. Always DM me, and I read them all. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening, or good afternoon, or morning, wherever you are.